Hello and welcome again to Chemistry in Action. From the world of plastics, elastomers, and fibers, we now turn to the study of the polymers of living things. A single living cell is composed of hundreds of types of these molecules. They have a more complex structure and composition than the plastic or fiber molecules we have recently considered. Why? The monomers themselves may be larger and more varied. Interactions between parts of a single molecule or between molecules can also be more intricate. Perhaps for this reason, biochemistry is not very well understood. But is it complicated? It doesn't have to be. So today, to give you just a few examples of the reactions that take place within us, we will talk about the chemistry of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Before we get on with the lesson, we have to take that break. We'll be back. In this first part of the lesson, we will study the molecules that make up our food. The food we eat contains many polymer molecules. We find carbohydrates in rice, bread, and vegetables, fats and proteins in butter, milk, fish, and meats. We start with carbohydrates. When you hear the word carbohydrate, do you think sugar or starch? If you do, you're right. The basic building block of the carbohydrates is a sugar, the monosaccharide. Monosaccharides are simple sugars or aldehydes or ketones containing 3 to 7 carbon atoms and many hydroxyl groups. Glucose or dextrose, C6H12O6, is the most important of them all. Glucose is a 6-carbon sugar with an aldehyde group at carbon 1 and hydroxyl groups on the rest of the carbon atoms. We can also draw glucose as a cyclic molecule. The cyclic form may be written two ways: alpha-D-glucose with a hydroxyl group pointing downwards, or beta-D-glucose with a hydroxyl group pointing upwards. Another 6-carbon sugar is fructose. It is a sugar of fruits and honey. In honey, fructose and glucose are present in equal amounts. Other natural sugars, called disaccharides, contain 2 sugar molecules joined by an ether linkage or glycosidic bond. A disaccharide consisting of 2 alpha-glucose molecules is called maltose. We will see it again later today. Sucrose, C12H22O11, or table sugar, is obtained from sugar cane or sugar beets. Consists of 1 glucose molecule and 1 fructose molecule. Polymers of these mono or disaccharides are called polysaccharides. They are also known as complex carbohydrates. In plants, the major polysaccharides are cellulose and starch. Cellulose is the principal component of the plant cell wall. It is a polymer of glucose molecules of the beta form. Cellulose forms fibrous chains found in the stems and leaves of plants and in the peel, flesh, and seeds of fruits. Cellulose constitutes the so-called fiber in our diet. Starch is a storage carbohydrate in plants. Rice, wheat, and corn, and root crops like potatoes, camote, or cassava are rich in starch. Starch contains thousands of glucose units. It has 2 components. Amylose is a continuous chain of alpha-glucose molecules. It forms a helical coil when it is dissolved in water. When iodine is added to a starch solution, the solution turns dark blue in color. Iodine molecules are trapped within this helix. The interaction between iodine and starch gives rise to the dark blue complex. Amylopectin contains a similar chain of alpha-glucose molecules, but there are branches in the chain every 30 units or so. In animals, the storage polysaccharide is glycogen. It is the same alpha-glucose chain as amylopectin, except that there are more branches, every 10 units or so. Lipids are a general class of molecules which are soluble in organic solvents. This group of compounds includes fats, oils, cholesterol and its compounds, and fat-soluble vitamins. In our diet, we get lipids from butter, margarine, vegetable oils, nuts, meat, fish, and poultry products. The main molecules we associate with lipids are the fatty acids. Fatty acids are straight-chain carboxylic acids with an even number of carbon atoms. High concentrations of free fatty acids are toxic to animals. Thus, fatty acids are usually found esterified to glycerol. 3 fatty acids can bind to glycerol, forming a triester known as a triacylglycerol or triglyceride. Fatty acid components of triglycerides are classified as saturated if no double bonds are present, monounsaturated if one double bond is present, and polyunsaturated if 2 or more double bonds are present. Animal fats contain predominantly saturated fatty acids such as palmitic acid and stearic acid. They are usually solid at room temperature or at least melt at higher temperatures than vegetable oils. This is because the fatty acid side chains easily pack into orderly arrangements. Oils are obtained from vegetable sources like coconuts, corn, or olives. They have a higher proportion of unsaturated fatty acids like oleic, linoleic, and linolenic acids. Coconut oil contains about 50% lauric acid. The rest are fatty acids containing 6 to 16 carbon atoms. Oils are liquids at room temperature since the fatty acid side chains do not easily pack into orderly arrangements. Lipids are not polymers, strictly speaking, but are rather big assemblies of these individual molecules packed closely together. Liver, fatty tissue, and membranous parts of animals are rich sources of lipids. In membranes, they are oriented so that polar ends pack on one side, while non-polar fatty acid tails are on the other side. Proteins also form part of these membranes. Proteins are a third class of biomolecules. They're found in almost any kind of natural food, for no part of plants or animals is completely without them. Thus, we get proteins in our diet from meat, fish, eggs, milk, and cheese, and many others. The building blocks of proteins are the amino acids. Amino acids are compounds that contain amino, carboxylic acid, and side chain R groups arranged around a central carbon atom. The R group may be alkyl as in leucine, alcoholic as in serine, acidic as in aspartic acid, and amine as in lysine, or aromatic as in phenylalanine. Each amino acid in a protein is joined to the next by an amide.